The little motorboat sputtered. It coughed a puff of blue smoke. Then it chugged forward into the mouth of the river. Leo gripped the side of the boat, his knuckles turning white. The jungle walls rose up on either side like giant green teeth ready to chomp down on them. "Are you sure about this, Professor?" he whispered. The air was thick and wet, like breathing through a damp cloth. Every splash of the water against the hull echoed in the sudden, heavy silence. The sunlight vanished, swallowed by the thick canopy of leaves high above their heads. They were entering a tunnel of green darkness, a place that didn't want them there. Professor Alistair Finch adjusted his spectacles, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He didn't seem to notice the danger, or maybe he just didn't care. "This is it, team. The Rio Perdido, the Lost River," he announced, his voice a little too loud. Beside him, Maya scanned the riverbanks, her hand resting on a long machete. "The legends call this stretch the Serpent's Moor for a reason," she said, her voice low and steady. "The current is treacherous and the locals say the river itself is alive." A strange shiver went down Leo's spine. He looked into the murky brown water. Was that a shadow moving just beneath the surface, or was it just his imagination playing tricks on him? They had been traveling for 3 days, leaving the last dusty outpost far behind. The map they followed was ancient, drawn on brittle yellowed parchment. It promised a forgotten city, a place of impossible treasures and forgotten magic. But first they had to survive the river. The jungle pressed in. It sent a mix of sweet rotting flowers and damp earth. Strange, colourful birds with sharp beaks watched them from the branches, their calls sounding like mocking laughter. Leo felt 1,000 unseen eyes on him, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck that wouldn't go away. The boat felt so small, so fragile in this vast, overwhelming wilderness. Suddenly the boat lurched. It was caught in a current that pulled them faster, deeper into the jungle's heart. "Hold on!" Alistair shouted, grabbing the tiller. The water churned, turning from a calm brown to a frothy, angry white. They were being pulled into the rapids. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. This wasn't just an adventure anymore. It felt like they had been caught in a trap. The jungle had them now, and he had a sinking feeling that it wasn't going to let them go easily. The river roared, and the journey into darkness had truly begun. The roar of the rapids faded behind them, replaced by a new symphony of sounds. The jungle was alive with noise, a constant chorus of buzzing, chirping, and chattering. High in the canopy, monkeys howled, their cries echoing through the trees like lost souls. Insects the size of Leo's thumb buzzed past his ears, their wings a blur of motion. Maya pointed to a thick vine dangling just above the water. A snake, its scales shimmering like emeralds and jet, was coiled around it. Its forked tongue flickered out, tasting the air. "Don't touch the vines," she warned, her voice barely a whisper. "Everything here is either poisonous or hungry." The air grew hotter, heavier. Sweat dripped down their faces, stinging their eyes. The jungle was a maze of green and brown, with no clear path forward except the winding river. Giant waxy leaves blocked their view, making it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Sometimes they'd pass a clearing and see the ruins of an old stone wall completely covered in moss and vines. It was a ghostly reminder that people had once lived here, in this suffocating green world. Professor Alistair sketched frantically in his notebook, documenting every strange flower and crumbling stone they passed. He was in his element, a historian unwrapping a living, breathing mystery. Leo trailed his hand in the cool water, trying to calm his nerves. A flash of red and blue shot past his fingers. Piranhas! He yanked his hand back into the boat, his heart skipping a beat. The river was just as dangerous as the jungle that surrounded it. Later, as they navigated a particularly narrow channel, a huge shape blocked their path. It was a caiman, its bumpy hide looking like ancient rock. Its yellow eyes stared at them without blinking, its massive jaw slightly open, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. They had to cut the engine and drift silently past, holding their breath until the giant reptile slipped back into the murky depths. As evening approached, the sounds of the jungle changed. The daytime creatures grew quiet, and a new set of noises emerged from the shadows. Low growls echoed from the riverbanks, and the air filled with the chirps of a million tiny frogs. The setting sun cast long, spooky shadows that danced and twisted, turning familiar shapes into monstrous figures. Leo felt a deep, primal fear creep into his heart. They were intruders here, small and insignificant in a world that had existed long before them. The whispers of the canopy seemed to be telling them a secret. Turn back, or be swallowed whole. Without warning, the sky turned a sickening shade of greyish-green. The humid air grew still and heavy, and an unnatural silence fell over the jungle. Even the insects stopped their incessant buzzing. "Storm's coming," Maya said, her eyes on the horizon. A bad one. Professor Alistair began frantically securing their supplies, tying down crates with rope. "The legends speak of sudden violent storms," he muttered, more to himself than to them. They believed it was the anger of the sky god, Chak, trying to protect the hidden city from outsiders. The first drop of rain was fat and cold. Then another and another. The drizzle turned into a downpour. The rain came down in solid sheets, so thick they could barely see the front of their own boat. The river, once a lazy brown ribbon, began to swell and churn. It rose rapidly, swallowing the banks and creeping up the trunks of the ancient trees. Thunder cracked overhead, a sound so loud it felt like the sky was being torn in two. Flashes of lightning illuminated the jungle in stark, terrifying detail, revealing a world of thrashing leaves and panicked animals for a split second before plunging them back into darkness. The little boat was tossed about like a leaf in the wind, completely at the mercy of the raging water. "We need to find shelter!" Leo yelled over the roar of the storm. The motor sputtered and died, drowned by the deluge. They were adrift, spinning in the violent current. A massive tree branch, torn loose by the wind, crashed into the water just inches from their boat, sending a huge wave over the side. They were sinking. Working together, they bailed water out with buckets, their movements frantic and desperate. Maya used a paddle to steer them away from floating debris, her face a mask of intense concentration. Even the professor, usually lost in his thoughts, was a whirlwind of action, his fear forgotten in the face of immediate danger. Just when they thought all was lost, a lightning flash revealed a dark opening in the rock face of the riverbank. A cave. "There!" Maya screamed, pointing. With their last ounces of strength, they paddled towards it, fighting the current with every stroke. The river tried to pull them away, to drag them back into its furious embrace. But they were a team, driven by a shared will to survive. They scraped against the rocks and finally managed to pull the half-sunk boat into the relative calm of the cave. Soaked and exhausted, they collapsed onto the rocky floor, listening to the storm god's fury rage just outside their sanctuary. As their eyes adjusted to the gloom of the cave, they realized it wasn't a natural formation. The walls were too smooth, the ceiling too perfectly arched. Professor Alistair lit a waterproof lantern, and the beam of light fell upon walls covered in carvings. Faded paintings of jaguars with glowing eyes, priests in elaborate feathered headdresses, and a great shining sun stared back at them. "My word," the professor breathed, his voice filled with awe. "This isn't just a cave. It's a temple entrance. We've found it. We've actually found it." The legends were not just stories, they were real, and they had stumbled right into the heart of one. They ventured deeper, their footsteps echoing in the vast, silent chamber. The air was cool and dry, a stark contrast to the suffocating humidity outside. The carvings on the walls told a story of a powerful civilization that worshipped the sun. They followed the intricate patterns, which seemed to lead them further into the darkness. Maya noticed that the jaguar carvings all seemed to be looking in the same direction, their stone eyes guiding them towards a smaller passage hidden behind a curtain of thick roots. It was a secret door, one that had likely remained unopened for centuries. Together they pushed aside the heavy roots, revealing another chamber. This room was different. In the center, on a stone pedestal, rested a single object. It was a crystal, perfectly round and glowing with a soft, warm internal light. It pulsed gently like a sleeping heart. The light illuminated the entire chamber, revealing piles of gold artifacts and precious jewels scattered across the floor. But the glowing orb was the real treasure. "The Sunstone," Alistair whispered, his voice trembling. "According to the legend, it holds the captured light of 1,000 suns. It was the power source for their entire city. It wasn't magic," he explained, "but an ancient, forgotten form of technology." Leo reached out, his fingers hovering just above the stone surface. He could feel a strange energy radiating from it, a gentle warmth that hummed with immense power. They had done it. They had braved the serpent's maw, survived the whispers of the canopy, and weathered the fury of the storm. Working together, they had unveiled a secret lost to time. The jungle had tested them, thrown its worst at them, but their courage and teamwork had led them to this incredible discovery. The sunstone pulsed, and in its gentle light, Leo knew their adventure was far from over. This was only the beginning.